Due to the unique nature of SCP-2256, it's necessary to place the special containment procedures of this anomaly at the forefront of any explanation. Information around SCP-2256 is subject to a gradual antimemetic corrosion effect. This means that, over time, not only will your understanding and memory of SCP-2256 fade, but all physical records of the creatures will eventually fade too. How quickly this corrosion occurs depends on the level of detail and accuracy in the information and the physical complexity of the storage medium. For example, basic representations such as rough pencil sketches, general written descriptions, and paperwork fade slowly over a long period of time. In-depth academic papers, photographs, and information stored electronically decay rapidly. This video you're watching now, which is electronically stored and features both audio elements and colorful animated visuals, well, let's just say you'd be wise to watch it while it still exists. To keep it from decaying too quickly, this video, much like the original file on SCP-2256, will describe the creatures and their effects in broad terms. More detailed explorations into their appearance, theorized evolutionary ancestry, biology, diet, behavior, vocalizations, life cycle, intelligence, ecological role, and cultural significance will be omitted and saved for hard copies in the sealed Site-19 archives. And besides, you won't remember it anyway. SCP-2256, which went by the Latin name Cryptomorpha gigantis, was a species of gigafauna, meaning huge animal, that inhabited the South Pacific Ocean around the Polynesian Islands. The species was remarkable not only for their incredible size, but for their almost unique defense mechanism. SCP-2256 developed what is known as perceptual camouflage, rendering them antimemetic, almost impossible to perceive or recall through regular means. The antimemetic aura of the SCP-2256 species is reminiscent of two other anomalies known to the Foundation, SCP-055, the most powerful anti-meme of all time, and SCP-268. This item is a hat that gives the user a similar perceptual camouflage to SCP-2256, and has since fallen into the clutches of the Serpent's Hand. But back to SCP-2256. These creatures had a truly remarkable height. In fact, they were the tallest living things to ever exist on Earth, resembling vertically elongated and spindly giraffes or brachiosauruses. The typical height of an adult specimen was over 1,000 meters, which is taller than two Empire State Buildings stacked on top of one another. However, despite their immense height, the creatures only weighed in on average at 4 tons. This is because, due to an anomalous biological adaptation similar to their perceptual shroud, SCP-2256 had also developed a kind of camouflage for their true weight, despite such a thing being theoretically impossible. The creatures also adapted broad, disc-shaped feet that would allow them to simply walk directly across the surface of the ocean without sinking. These entities roamed the open waters alone or in herds that could range from just 2 specimens to groups of over 2,000. Because of their placid and cautious nature, SCP-2256 were reluctant to ever approach dry land, and especially inhabited islands. They would typically maintain at least 30 kilometers of distance, just to be safe. But due to their immense height, they could still be seen from this distance. To any observer capable of bypassing their perceptual camouflage, they would appear as a series of vertical lines stacked along the horizon. Of course, bypassing the perceptual camouflage was always the biggest hurdle when it came to interacting with, or even just documenting SCP-2256. The Foundation got lucky enough, and a means of actually engaging with the creatures fell into their lap. The indigenous Polynesian inhabitants of the island of Maikiti had used a substance called teucoca for recreational and religious purposes for centuries. This chemical compound was not only a moderate hallucinogenic used for inducing altered states in religious ceremonies, it also turned out to have powerful mnestic properties, meaning it actually improves memory recall, the opposite of an amnestic. The drug suppressed the antimemetic properties of SCP-2256's perceptual shroud and allowed them to be seen and remembered by the Maikiti inhabitants. Thus, the Maikitians were the only people who had seen SCP-2256 for hundreds of years, and the creatures became a part of their mythology. According to the local legends, SCP-2256 were wandering spirits whom the gods had charged with maintaining the horizon to ensure that the sky and the water never mixed. The Maikitians saw them as friendly, well-meaning, and benevolent, but also unintelligent and often incompetent in their duties, which would lead to the formation of storms and typhoons. They were dubbed Poloongaka'u, the ones who walk very slowly. An internal biological study at the Foundation discovered that teucoca, the perception-altering substance used by the Maikitians, bore striking chemical resemblance to the Foundation's own Class W Nestic, which meant they already had sufficient tools to conduct further studies into the nature of SCP-2256 at their disposal. In 1991, the Foundation sent one of their anthropologists to follow the Maikishan legend and see if there was any real substance to the legends of the Poloangaka'u. As a result, that Foundation anthropologist became the first non-Maikishan to bear witness to what would become known as SCP-2256. The Foundation sent an entire observation team to the island. Routine containment analysis found that SCP-2256 was safe and required no special containment procedures. The Foundation wasn't even required to make any efforts to secure the secrecy of the species, due to the fact that the antimemetic qualities inherent to SCP-2256 essentially did the Foundation's job for them. True research on SCP-2256 could finally begin, but it wouldn't be long before the research period came to its own tragic end. Attempts to document SCP-2256 immediately ran into the roadblock of their antimemetic defense mechanisms. All attempts to photograph SCP-2256 were met with immediate failure. Photographic negatives of the species faded into transparency over the course of a few minutes, making them impossible to develop. Videotape, audio tape, celluloid film, digital and electronic scans, CD-ROMs, all of them immediately suffered the same antimemetic decay in no time. As a result, the observation team decided to change their tactics. They placed their high-tech, cutting-edge equipment back in the inventory and did things the old-fashioned way, taking pen and paper notes and making pencil sketches, which appeared at the time to be the only records on SCP-2256 that would permanently remain. Things began to go downhill for SCP-2256 shortly after that. The population of the species declined significantly between 1992 and 1993, then dropped even more sharply from 1994 onwards. This was believed to be due to a number of contributing factors, including illness, infertility, and an increasing rate of stillbirths within the species. In 2002, the Foundation developed a field generator capable of disabling the perceptual shroud around an SCP-2256 specimen, allowing their photo to be taken for the first time. However, as soon as someone tried to take a picture of one of the creatures up close, it immediately died. The conclusion taken from this was that the very act of being perceived and recorded was dangerous to SCP-2256, and its antimemetic qualities had evolved to stop this from happening. The field generator fell into disuse after this discovery was made. Foundation researchers began to hypothesize that their ongoing research into the species was the very thing causing it to slowly decline. If this hypothesis was true, two potential options were floated. The first was to expunge all the data in the hope that it would return things to the status quo and protect SCP-2256. The second option was exterminating SCP-2256, which it was theorized would stop the erasing and fading process and protect the data. As this was being debated, though, the Foundation found that the choice was soon made for them. Populations of the creature continued to falter severely, and even as the Foundation was deciding what to do, SCP-2256 may had already crossed the point of no return. And while investigations largely ceased in 2003, just 3 years later, on October 30th, 2006, the last SCP-2256 died. SCP-2256 was extinct. The antimemetic corrosion effect was discovered in 2010, when even the paper notes and drawings of 2256 finally began to fade as well, and it is predicted that all information on SCP-2256 will have fully erased itself in just 3 to 8 years. While SCP-2256 was given a safe classification while it still roamed the Earth, this does not apply after the extinction of the species. Despite the creatures themselves being neutralized, the anomalous nature of recorded information and memories regarding SCP-2256 still remain. Because of the difficulty in containing this information due to the antimemetic corrosion effect, SCP-2256 is today regarded as Euclid class. There exists a concept in the study of physics known as the observer effect, which, in layman's terms, means the phenomenon being observed is disturbed by the very act of being observed. There are a few applications of this that are more tangible and tragic than the case of SCP-2256 and the Foundation's accidental role played in their extinction. Because of the phenomenon of nestic decay, all records of the very tall things are doomed to eventually fade. This video included. You may one day find a pencil sketch of a strange, tall creature walking across the water with its head in the clouds. But by then, you probably won't even know what it means anymore.